Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating period of history. Our objective here is pretty clear. We're going to analyze the dual pillars of early Islam. Drawing directly from our historical and theological source material, we want to figure out exactly what built this massive civilization from the ground up. To do that, we'll be exploring how the Word and the Shield came together to completely shape the 7th century world.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We've got 5 key areas today. 1. The dawn of revelation. 2. Preserving the divine text. 3. Miracles within the pages. 4. The battle of Badr. And 5. Leadership, family, and mercy. Basically, we're looking at the foundation of the Quran and then the physical struggle of the early Muslim community. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The Dawn of Revelation, the 23-year journey of the Quran. Now, according to Islamic tradition, the entire textual foundation of the faith wasn't simply handed down overnight.
Starting way back in 610 CE, the source describes the Prophet Muhammad receiving the very first revelation in the cave of Hira. From there, it was a gradual 23-year journey. It kicked off with a cautious 3-year period of secret invitation to the faith among close family and friends. Then, that was followed by 20 years of an open public call along with subsequent ongoing revelations. This steady, piece-by-piece rollout is absolutely crucial to understand because it meant the text provided real-time guidance to the growing community as they faced some really intense, evolving struggles.
And it literally all started with these exact words. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot, who taught by the pen, taught man what he did not know. Our sources pinpoint this specific verse as the spark, the immense catalyst that began completely reshaping the social order of the 7th century, challenging those long-held traditions and pushing for sweeping societal reforms.
Moving right along to Section 2, Preserving the Divine Text. From memory to the standardized Musaf, let's see how this builds into the monumental task of preserving a rapidly expanding religious text.
So, you might be wondering, how did this massive amount of text actually survive intact? Well, the source breaks it down into 3 distinct steps. Step 1. Immediate preservation. As verses were revealed, the prophet dictated them and his companions meticulously memorized them or wrote them down on things like palm leaves and stones. Step 2 happens after the prophet's passing. After losing many top memorizers at the Battle of Yamama, Caliph Abu Bakr stepped in and ordered the compilation of all these scattered pieces into a single, unified book, known as a mushaf. Finally, Step 3. With the empire expanding rapidly and new dialects popping up, Caliph Usman standardized the text based strictly on the original Quraysh dialect and distributed it. It was a decisive move that locked in the Quran's written legacy.
Section 3. Miracles within the pages. Scientific and literary claims. Here, we impartially examine the specific claims presented by the source text, which point to the book's stated divine origin.
The source highlights some pretty striking parallels with modern science. For instance, the text mentions the heavens and earth being joined before separating, mirroring the Big Bang, and explicitly states the universe is expanding. It describes Earth's atmosphere as a protected roof and claims iron actually originated from space. It even details embryonic developmental stages and refers to mountains acting as stabilizing pegs for the Earth's crust. What you should take away from this is the stark contrast the source draws between these advanced concepts and general 7th century knowledge. You know, an era where people largely thought the sky was just a fixed, unchanging dome.
Now, I want you to consider this specific number for a second. 2,806. Why? Well, the sources tell us this represents the exact number of times the word Allah appears throughout the text.
But it's not just the frequency that scholars point out, it's exactly how and where these words are placed. The source describes a unique literary phenomenon called tawafuk. Basically, this is the perfect visual alignment of specific words across different pages and lines. Those 2,806 mentions of Allah visually align perfectly, sometimes stacking vertically like pearls on a string or matching up back to back when you flip the page. Given that these verses were revealed over 23 years in wildly different circumstances, the source presents this intricate visual symmetry as a deliberate and miraculous design.
Okay, so that thoroughly covers the word. Now we transition over to the shield. Section 4. The Battle of Badr, the physical defense of the faith. Taking place in 624 CE, this represents the very first major physical defense of this new ideology.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how massive the disadvantage was for the early Muslims. The numbers from our source material show a stark contrast. Side A, the Muslim army, marched out with a meager force of just 313 men, 2 horses, and 70 camels. On Side B, the Qurayshi army was a fully equipped military force of 950 men, 100 horsemen, and 700 camels. We're talking about a massive numerical and material disadvantage on the battlefield.
Yet the outcome was completely stunning. Based on the historical sources, look at these numbers. The Muslim army lost 14 martyrs, with 0 captured. The vastly superior Quraysh army suffered 70 killed and 70 captured. Objectively speaking, this was a critical turning point in early Islamic history. If those 300 Muslims had lost here, the movement likely would have been wiped out. Instead, this unlikely victory solidified the physical survival of the new faith.
Which brings us to Section 5, Leadership, Family, and Mercy, the human element of the prophet. We are now shifting focus to humanize this history. The source material emphasizes that the prophet's leadership extended far, far beyond military strategy into deeply personal and ethical conduct.
Think back for a second to those 70 enemy prisoners captured after the Battle of Badr. I want to pose this directly to you. How do you think they were treated? Remember, we're in the 7th century here. Rules of engagement were usually brutal and unforgiving.
But the sources reveal something pretty extraordinary for the time. Prisoners were given 2 main options for their freedom. Option 1, pay a monetary ransom to be set free. Or, brilliantly, Option 2, teach 10 children in Medina how to read and write. If a prisoner did that, they went free. This highlights the astonishing value the early Islamic state placed on education and literacy, actively weaving it right into their rules of war and mercy.
Now, behind the grand military victories and all the profound revelations, there is this haunting number, 6. According to the source, the Prophet Muhammad actually buried 6 of his 7 children with his own hands during his lifetime.
Despite enduring that kind of unimaginable personal tragedy, the kind of grief that would absolutely break most people, the sources consistently describe his ability to maintain an ethos of profound mercy, balanced leadership, and family resilience. He was carrying this unimaginably heavy burden of guiding an emerging civilization, dealing with intense political threats, but the sources say he balanced all that grief with gentleness. For example, lengthening his prayers just so his grandchildren could play on his back.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If an entire civilization was built upon these dual pillars of text and struggle, the word and the shield, how much of world history is still being actively shaped today by those foundational 23 years? It is an incredibly potent piece of history to examine, and I hope this explainer gave you a really clear, structured look into how it all began. Thanks for learning with us today.